Here's what gets people today, and this is why Bezos is the richest man in the world. All he does is reduce friction. It's that buy again button on Amazon. Okay. There it is. They know you bought it 6 months ago. It lasts 6 months and suddenly it pops up buy again. When you click buy again, it tells you when the damn thing is going to arrive. It doesn't say, are you sure? And enter your credit card number or anything. He did the same with the Washington Post. He just made it very, very simple. He didn't do it himself. It's just the mentality. So how does that translate to an agency?
Our first guest in season 2 of Agency Talk is Mr. Gordon Borrell. Since 2001, Gordon and his company, Borrell Associates, have brought fascinating research, data, insights, and trending to local markets all over the United States for advertisers and media companies to use to plan the best possible campaigns. With no further ado, Mr. Gordon Borrell.
I'm excited because one, we get the opportunity to bring in really incredible experts and talking to you about how they have scaled or what you need to be paying attention to scale. And today I've got Tim Burke here, who's joining me, founder of Conduit and Traffic Builder, and amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate that. And then I can't shake your hand, but we also have Gordon Borrell here, which is amazing. This beautiful man with an amazing background and a great house and a great storyteller. But I'll tell you what we're going to talk about today and what all these conversations are going to be about is how these people can focus in on scale and how to do it the right way. So let me, without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Tim to maybe give us a little information about yourself, and then also tell us a little bit about why Gordon Borrell is here and a part of this scale conversation.
Absolutely. I came up through the traditional media, and for the last, I think, 15, 20 years, looking at research that Gordon and his company have generated have been the North Star for the way that we moved a lot of our sales organizations and marketing organizations. So his company has been, I think, at the forefront of what is happening in our society, which is marketers we've got to be in front of. And he was also, I think, really one of the early leading advocates of digital. And people were saying, no, it's not happening, because they weren't feeling the pain yet. And Gordon's research just consistently said, you need to be paying attention. And I think if people had paid attention to him earlier, they would have been more ramped up, as things happen. But he was just the early advocate for how digital was going to take things over. So, Gordon, yeah. I think your information's been awesome over the years, and I'm just so appreciative to have you here.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'm excited about, Gordon, is that I feel like most people that are going to be watching this, they have successful agencies. Most of them have been around for a little while, and they're thinking about scaling their business, right? That inevitable question that comes up with success. What do I do now? Right? How do I predictively, or how do I know without maybe a little bit of a reasonable doubt that I can do this thing, that I can scale it, or do I sell it? Do I blow it up? What do I do? And how can we start to look at specifically with what I know your background is? What are the early indicators that scale is an option? And then let's get into maybe why people should scale or what they should be looking at. But you specifically, with your background and your research that you've done, how you're one of the most quoted people as a consultant in the top 2% of people asking you this similar question. What do you look at? What should they be paying attention to if they want to scale their business?
That's a really good question. It's very muddy at this point. What you have is, and the reason I got into the business 20 years ago, it wasn't that, I was so prescient to see that digital was going to be so big, but I knew that it would be a very confusing marketplace, and that true to any disruptive innovation that has occurred over long periods of time, there is a pattern to digital media. And it would be kind of confusing, and that you would focus on the wrong thing. So when you're looking at the types of things that are out there today that an agency can pursue, it's very, very difficult to say no to an advertiser when you're afraid that you're going to lose them. And that's what everybody has. So the newspaper, TV, radio industry, agency industry, fear of loss. So when they say, can you help me with TikTok? And that's, 3% of advertisers are using TikTok. It's not a particularly strong advertising medium. You want to say yes. You want to say, yeah, sure, I'll help you with that. Sure, I'll help you with your website. Sure, I'll help you with SEO and SEM. And there are low margins in lots of those things that don't really scale all that well. So across the board, what we see is agencies moving almost en masse to things like social media management and website development, particularly last year, when what was happening was advertisers, businesses kind of retrenched and said, whoa, we need to communicate with people on our own communications channel, our website. And we need to tell people whether we're open or closed, and we need to add an e-commerce solution. We need to shore it up. We need to do this and that. Website design and development exploded for agencies and for everybody else as well. We think it'll probably retrench just a little bit in this year, because people have done what they really need to do to their website, made it more efficient. So I don't know if that's a particularly scalable service, but it's certainly a service that is in demand, and they all tie together with the need to advertise. In fact, we tested this several years ago with advertisers, local businesses that we survey. We run the largest survey of local advertisers in the country every year. And we asked them, what is their website? We gave them a list of things. And number one was, it's advertising. So they create their website with advertising. Follow me here. An agency is going to say, yes, we do website design, development, all those technical skills. Or they're going to say no. And if they say no, that business is going to go to somebody else. And that other person handling their website is going to be seen as somebody who knows about advertising and is going to be giving them advice about advertising. So if the agency loses these various components of business, many of which are not very scalable, then they're going to lose a client. So that's the big sticky kind of conundrum in the whole digital mess. It's not as easy as saying, we'll do some creative, we'll place you in TV, we'll take our 15% and we'll charge you for the basic agency fees.
Right. And it feels a little bit like a trap. And the reason why I say this is, like, Tim, you've obviously been in the agency world for a long time. And what obviously Gordon is saying here is that people are essentially, afraid. and what I mean by that is, like, how much of our actions on an everyday basis are fear based. And what would you say to somebody who's kind of sitting around not wanting to make a mistake?
I think that you can't run away from those things that are most effective due to margin. So you've got to be able to offer your advertiser the best solution for your advertiser, not just the one that the biggest margin resides in. And we've seen a lot of ad agencies migrate to those things where the margin is more robust than it is on SEM, to your point, Gordon. But you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to offer your advertiser the best solution and, a full funnel solution ideally, but you've got to be able to offer them what works best for them. Agencies often say they want to be product agnostic. And unless you offer that full suite of services and products, it's hard to be that. But I think we can't chase margin and lose track of effectiveness and results.
And it's interesting, and it kind of plays me into this follow-up question with Gordon. So does it mean, and am I hearing you right, that kind of scaling inevitably is niching down or specialization? Has that been a part of a lot of what you're seeing in people doing, kind of leaving some of that work that doesn't scale and really focusing on the things that people are great at? Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say there?
Yeah, and I think that is counter to a lot of people's sort of knee-jerk reaction to business. The business is there, let's go scoop it up, and we're going to deal with dentists, and we're going to deal with auto dealers, and we're going to deal with furniture stores, and we're going to, what if there's plenty of money. Trust me, there is just phenomenal amounts of money. This is one of the reasons we got in the business in the year 2000, is we knew everybody would be focusing, as I said, on kind of the wrong things or on things that just made them very confused, when in fact, this is an amazing statement. The advertising, the money that businesses are spending on advertising and marketing has expanded phenomenally. Even in 2020, it has, and it continues to grow and grow and grow. The demand for information and for news is growing and growing and growing. So why are newspapers shrinking and shrinking? The demand for audio and video is increasing. So why is radio audiences, kind of disappearing, and television audiences? So if you look at things very differently, you realize, I'm bringing this full circle for you, that there is so much money in the marketplace that there are businesses, your more important decision might be, what you want to say no to. No, we don't specialize in, HVAC. That's really not our area. We really specialize in these 3 or 4 service areas or health categories, et cetera. And businesses will be far more attracted to you because everybody appears to be trying to do the same thing. Even media companies are morphing into what looks like agencies. They're providing a great deal of agency services, and the marketplace has become very confused. Well, this guy handles SEO for me, and this guy also does website development, and he can sell me some, radio spots too. So I'm going to deal with him. So if you niche and say, oh no, we deal with all the dentists, in the 5-state area, or we deal with this particular niche health category, et cetera. So I think you're exactly right. The more you niche, and the more you niche in products to some extent. I'd be cautious about that though. Say, oh no, we don't offer these other services.
Yeah, that's good. And I want to ask this, obviously you guys have niched down quite a bit, niche or niche, whatever you want to call it right now. But I want to know and this is the same conversation, the same question for Gordon, same question for you, is finding that. And just identifying what that should be. And gosh darn it, it's hard to say no. It's incredibly difficult to say no, but some of the most successful people, you two included, are people that always come with the message of saying you have to say no to what might feel like a great opportunity for the right one, right?
On the opposite side of the product conversation that I was just talking about, I think you've got to be a vertical specialist today. I think to Gordon's point, and to so many of the conversations I've had with advertising agency owners, they're looking to maximize their opportunities in the areas that they're passionate about and specialists in. And if you're the dentist's agency, those dentists are going to be more attracted to you. And conversely, you're going to be able to be in a field that you're passionate about and deliver better results because of the knowledge you've got in the industry. So I think that's absolutely where the agencies are going forward.
Yeah, and I just want to ask you that one kind of piggyback question, Gordon, is just how people are finding their niche. Like, how are they actually looking at that? And if I am a full service agency, because that's what they've been told to be, and they've had some success with it, what are you saying no to and what are you saying yes to? Is it just purely what you're interested in, or is there some calculated way of going about figuring out what you should specialize in?
Well, for agencies in the world that we live in particular, are local agencies that might have, 20 or 30 clients, or maybe even 10. And it's difficult to niche into, say, we're going to deal with all dentists in the market because it represents conflicts, right?
Right.
So I think you've really got to take a look at the products and which products offer the strongest suite or the greatest demand. And you really want to try to include as many as you possibly can, because the big problem, as I said, is that all of those individual products that you might offer, or services, I guess would be better, are seen as marketing. So if you're jettisoning one of them and saying, well, we're not doing SEO because we can't make any margin in it, or we're not rebuying search keywords, SEM, they're going to deal with somebody probably, and that person's going to give them advice. So I think you have to say no to the ones where you really don't have expertise and really can't, develop it internally. I wouldn't allow margins to make the decision there. I think, you have to be, I found that the secrets of being a business is deciding what to say no to, and to say no fairly often. Also, if you want to move forward and you want to grow, you probably have to be pissing off somebody at least once a week. So, and if you're not, you're probably not, moving fast enough. And I think it's also, you referenced it a little bit earlier, failing. If you're afraid to fail, well, you should, go work at McDonald's or something, because, there's a lot of lessons in failure. And failure, if you're resilient, if you're smart, and I assume you are because you're already in business, you're going to learn from that failure, and you're going to zig and zag. So now is the time, and we saw this in 2021. There were a lot of businesses, agencies that basically got paralyzed. They didn't know what the hell to do. They didn't know how to change. And it was a time for many of them to move forward and to scoop up business from those that were paralyzed, to get a lot more creative. We saw a lot of that. So typically in a downturn, which we saw in 2000 with the dot-com bubble burst, or 2008 with the Great Recession, you see growth in certain companies and shrinkage in others. So a larger share is gained. And we certainly saw that in 2020 with agencies.
Yeah. It's so interesting because here's phase one of this conversation. I kind of want to cap it because I want to transition to something else. But I hope people understand, and I hope what you're hearing at home is that, man, there's a lot of riches in the niches, right? There's a lot of great things that can happen if you specialize. And in fact, what I'm hearing is like it's kind of gasoline to scale, which I kind of like. But let's talk about this next thing. I want to transition over because I only have so much time with both of you, but I really want to get into this with Gordon. So tell us a little bit about this. How predictive is scale? Based on the research, the data points, and what should people be looking at? Because that's something that I feel like everyone gets confused on, is what should I be paying attention to? I'm going to ask you this because you said a comment to me when we had a conversation, sidebar conversation, which was like, man, it's our responsibility as an agency owner to be looking in the rearview mirror at all times, right? To be kind of cognizant of all these different data points that come into the business. And so tell us what you pay attention to. And then the question is going to go over to Gordon about all of his research and what people actually should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I pay attention to people like Gordon. I just do. I mean, so when you take a survey from 350 advertising agencies, you're going, and those agencies, to the point that you've made many times, they're at the leading edge of the economy. They're driving the economy forward. And so what those agency owners are telling you is so valuable for the industry going forward. So I'm fascinated by the study that you just did.
Yeah, and Gordon, you did just do a study. You've been dealing with agencies for years and years. But yeah, tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're learning out of that study.
Each of these agencies, there were, I believe, 342, spent 20 minutes with us. That's a lot of time. Maybe a little more than that. I think there were a little over 30 questions. And it ran in tandem with a survey of about 2,200 direct advertisers, direct buyers of advertising, that spent 40 minutes with us each. So we do this once a year. We get lots and lots of insights. So here's what we found with agencies. And I think the big headline out of it, your question, I think, was, how do you look at scale? What can it tell you? Yep. I think what you have to do is look at what everybody's buying, and, you really need to pursue that. But you also got to take a look at the new things, the things that people are asking lots and lots of questions about, and determine whether that's just a flash in the pan, whether you want to devote resources to it, right? So we saw a couple of things. One in particular was, if you look at the digital marketing environment and how it's evolved, and traditional media has slowly devolved over the past 25 or so years, you saw the rise of Google. That was one big wave. And then the rise of Facebook, that was the second big wave. And now, of course, we have the rise of Amazon. But within the agency world, what we're seeing right now is the rise of what we'll loosely call OTT, but it's also streaming video advertising. And television advertising has been, a big driver of revenue for agencies, local agencies and national agencies alike. So we see OTT and streaming video advertising growing faster than Google did. Now, not that it's going to be big as Google, because Google is an entity and Facebook is an entity and OTT is not. It's a thing. But in terms of, if we call it search marketing, and the attraction toward that grew really quickly in the early 2000s. The attraction to Facebook from about 2010 on grew really quickly to where it is today, $40, $50 billion, in ad revenue. So when we look at OTT, we think this has grown faster in popularity. Right now, 81% of agencies, and this almost happened like that, 81% of agencies we found are using some form of connected TV advertising, including OTT and including YouTube. So a very targeted type of video advertising. Why this is important, why I'm spending so much time on it, is that the money spent in this area is probably going to go through the roof. And what agencies are likely to do, we can see it in our data. If you take two intersecting circles and look at the overlap in those two circles is about 10%, so a small football. You have on one side an incumbent business, another side a disruptive business. And the incumbent business, in this case agencies, will always focus on where that 10% overlap is and go, oh my God, television. We're going to sell people on TV, and we're going to, translate this as OTT 30-second spot, right? Yeah. When the growth in that other part of the disruption, which is basically streaming video advertising, is a completely new customer set. In fact, what we found is that the highest likelihood of a type of advertiser to buy streaming video is not TV advertisers, it's radio and outdoor, because they're on TV and they now can afford it. It's cheaper and it's more targeted. So when we looked at the agencies, what we found is they were actually taking budget. 54% of them were taking budget from broadcast TV to pay for OTT. But what we want to say to them is there's an entire new customer set. So they're switching, TV dollars here. But we're saying there's an entire new customer set. Great opportunities here for radio advertisers and outdoor, who are brand advertisers typically, to go after them and to say, hey, no, we can shoot a 2-minute video for you, a storytelling video. Content marketing, video marketing beyond like 30-second spots is gotten big, and it's going to get a lot bigger with agencies. I think that's probably the one thing that we looked at and said, wow, that is a big trend that's going to really explode this year.
What's really fascinating about that is, like, one, I'm a consumer, right? You guys are geniuses. I'm a consumer. So one thing that I know is, like, every time that there's a commercial spot on TV, I literally pick up my phone and I tune it out. I'm here. And if you talk to everybody, we're about to talk to Gary Vaynerchuk later and some other people, but they'll tell you, like, hey, people's attention is not in the traditional spaces anymore. But I'll tell you what's interesting. My friend Billie Jean told me that, hey, if you don't have a billboard, you're missing out. If you're only focused here, you're going to miss a huge opportunity. And what I meant is like, my question is, this all sounds like, if we're moving in one direction, what should we still be doing? What should ad agencies still be focusing on in traditional mediums? Should they still be like, how much of that budget should actually just be like, okay, we're going to focus on everybody because they're stuck to their phone? I just feel like they might be missing a huge opportunity. Am I wrong in saying that? Like, should they pull the plug on all those the old forms of advertising and focus on like mobile and where people are right now? Like, that's the kind of the question I think a lot of people are probably figuring out where to put their dollars.
I wouldn't say pull the plug, but there was some information in our survey that indicated half of agencies, and again, these are local agencies, half of them felt that their clients' budgets were out of sync. And of that half, a significant percentage said that they felt their clients weren't spending enough in digital. So that gives us a hint that, okay, if we're going to channel the agencies, they're thinking, yeah, just what you said, we need to scale back on the mass forms of media. What we see actually occurring is that there's an appropriate media mix, and it's a boatload, maybe 5 or 6 different types of digital media, and this comes out of our surveys, and 1 or 2 types of traditional or mass media. So you create a whole lot of stuff in niche here on websites or YouTube videos or whatever the campaign calls for. And then you select the appropriate medium that is going to assist you with that, whether it's broadcast TV or radio or outdoor, or a combination of a couple of those, direct mail, newspaper, etc. There is a scaling back in our major advertiser survey. These are direct buyers. They have gone from buying 5 different types. This, again, is a direct local business, the furniture store that does all their own marketing, right? They've gone from, just a few years ago, 5 different types of traditional media. Typically, they would buy in a campaign, direct mail, radio, newspaper, TV, outdoor, something like that, or maybe a mix of things, to 2. So they're making the cut themselves. This year in 2021, they'll be down to 2. Wow. And they're purchasing 5 to 6 different types of digital media now. So they're kind of settling in on the appropriate mix. Yeah. I think that the agencies probably have a very, very strong leadership role that they are unaware of, and that is they need to come and pound the table and say, no, we are your chosen partner. We're going to help you drive business. We know about marketing. It's a very confusing world. We can handle measurement. We can show you the results of campaigns, and you should be able to put your money where your mouth is on that. And you're the marketing experts. You drive the appropriate mix. Focus on content marketing and focus on what those advertisers want, and that is you to tell their story in whatever form is most efficient, not where you can make more money as an agency.
What I appreciate about that, Gordon, is that you clearly and simply laid out what an agency should be doing all the time. And partnering is major. It's a lot of people don't think of themselves as growth partners for people, or the fact that they influence the trend. So let me ask you this question, Tim. So you have built and scaled a huge agency. You've sold an agency. You've done a lot of those things. When you hear Gordon just talk about that, what, just so other people who are watching this that are successful agency owners don't miss it, what are you doing? What are you doing right now after we leave this conversation with your team? Like, what do you take out of that conversation?
I think it's spot on. I think you work backwards from results. So if you begin with the end in mind, you want a satisfied client that's getting that ROI. And it's not about PPC or SEO, it's about ROI. And so you're going to develop the right product mix to drive that ROI. One of the things that I think the agencies have to evolve in, off of Gordon's point as thought leaders, is that digital is not commodity. We're all using the same platforms, but ultimately, all the players in the NBA use the same basketball, right?
Yeah.
And it's a different basketball in LeBron's hands than it is in other people's hands. So I think it's how you use the platform. I think it's the integrity that you bring to it. It's the drive to get the results for that advertiser to help that agency. And I think it's just that ecosystem has to come back from results.
Yeah.
You said it really well, Tim. I think what I would add to it, or maybe sharpen it just a little bit more, is remember the scene from Mad Men where Don Draper is describing, the wheel, the Kodak wheel, which is a slide projector, and he tells that story and everybody starts crying. I mean, that is it. So digital, all that stuff is to some extent commoditized. Anybody can sell you SEO. Anybody can redesign your website. Anybody can, handle your email for you, things like that. But it's the ability to capture the advertiser's imagination, to be able to tell their story in a very creative way, using very precise graphic, wonderfully creative words that will really capture them. That is the difference for most agencies, I think, is not the array of services that they have, but be able to listen to that advertiser and say, here's your story and here's what we're going to do. And here's the campaign that we're going to launch. And this is why. This is the research that says we should do this. Trust me, these businesses out there, these advertisers, we have two parts to our survey, our agencies and our advertisers. The advertisers are the clients. They need help. They need help badly. They're taking on more and more of these tasks on their own internally. They're hiring people. The average small business spends $120,000 a year, get this, on managing all this digital crap, the marketing stuff that they're doing internally. And that's salaries, and that's part-time people doing stuff. It's the owner going online with a credit card and buying keywords every night, right? $120,000 a year, and they don't know it. And we know that from our surveys. We added it up from, so let's add all the tasks. Here it is. It's $120,000. And they go, holy shit, that's a lot of money. They need leadership. They are not marketing experts. They are novices, and they are looking for somebody to manage all this stuff that cousin Daryl or nephew Bill has taken on for them, and saying, yeah, Uncle Bob, you don't need to buy more TV and the OTT stuff. No, what you need is more SEO. And if you give me another $500, I'll do it for you. There is so much leadership opportunity out there for agencies in terms of education, not only your existing clients, but the entire market. Guarantee you go out there and find a way to be an educator about digital marketing and hold classes or seminars or webinars, and they will come to you like bees to flowers, because they are in deep need. I'm not just telling you that because I think it's in our surveys. It's what the advertisers are saying. We need somebody to educate us. We need somebody to help us. There's huge opportunity. Do you hear what I'm saying? I get so excited about this because I just don't see many people doing that in the marketplace. And I know there's a very strong need for education.
Massive. In fact, what's really interesting? So my background is I've been working with agencies forever. And what I realize is that there's two deficiencies with agencies. They don't have enough North Stars that they can follow, people that they can learn from, and they're isolated. Majority of agency owners are fairly isolated, and unfortunately they think that everybody's competition, when in fact what I really feel like they need is community. Now, I don't have the data to back that up. It might be a feeling, because I actually really selfishly want to know, Gordon, what your thought is on that. Do you think there's two other growth levers we haven't talked about? One is, I wonder how much partnership that not just partnering with their clients, but what is it about external partnerships? Have you seen anything in your research about agencies going out and partnering with one another, partnering with other MarTech, SaaS companies, those types of things that help with scale? Because a lot of people agencies are being inundated with opportunities, being like from Salesforce or from other people saying, hey, we want you to be an extension of us. We want you to take on this certification. We want you to be a partner of ours. How many of these agencies that you see that are growing are taking on external partnerships, either with each other or with other entities?
Not enough. There are few. I think people are generally afraid of the partnership word. But what I do see that I think is encouraging is quite a few of them have taken on some type of MarTech software, dashboards that help them monitor, particularly and search, which is a mess. And there's going to be a stronger and stronger need for that. So to the extent as an agency that you're able to provide some type of assessment dashboard, snapshot, photo, save it as a PDF and send it off to the client or go visit them when that's allowed.
Yep.
That's going to be really important, because one of the words that we see in these are the clients, the advertisers, the bigger survey that we do. One of the words that keeps rising up to the top, in addition to education, and help me, and cost, that's always a big one, is data, and measurement. Those two words are coming up and up and up, to the point at which we're going, wow, they're actually getting smarter because they're asking for more measurement. Can you tell me how that campaign actually did? Integrate with some of my customer data and give me more information on the performance. So to the extent that an agency can provide, I wouldn't say definitive, but maybe close to it, ROI on campaigns, or at least metrics that are impressive on how a particular campaign did, and whoever they can either lease that software from or rent it, or partner with somebody to provide that. That is the type of partner I think is going to be more and more and more important. The caution that I would give is that you don't want that partner having a relationship with your client. Because like I said, any of these types of services, some of them technology based, tend to be seen as marketing or advertising. And if that person is influential, that person might, draw that client away. I don't want anybody to be paranoid, but I want everybody to be paranoid, because that does happen, fairly often. It is a big confusing world when it comes to marketing, getting more complex as it goes along.
Yeah. I wish more people would actually, as an agency, put out more studies about the complexities that businesses have to go through and all the tools that are there. Because there's literally tens of thousands of opportunities and things people could spend their money on or pay attention to. And the more that people know that, they need to have a partner. They need to have somebody that comes in to help them navigate this confusing world that we are trying to figure out as business owners. So let's do this. Phase 3 is basically kind of wrapping this up. And I want to say this because everybody's going to listen to this, Gordon. Everybody's going to listen to this, Tim, this entire agency scale intensive, and they are going to have a million things that they could do. They're going to have so many different things that they could do. Let's narrow it down. Let's get a final thought. Let's figure out exactly, okay, what's the one big thing I hope you got from this session and that people can essentially go and take action right now. So let's start with that. What's the big thing you got from this session, and what do you think people should be focusing on?
I think the insights from the research from Gordon are so valuable. The thing that you were talking about at the end about providing the data, data is a wonderful thing. But ultimately, that can confuse clients sometimes. I think we've got to present the data in a narrative, and the client has to trust the agency. And when they do, the agency is creating that story, that narrative, and the data supports that direction, if that makes sense. So I think we can't just dump data on the clients, because that becomes confusing. They don't know what they're buying, nor should they. They're not in it every day. So I think it comes down to having the trust in the agency to provide that ethical compass to growth. And I think that's through a lot of data, but that data's got to be condensed into the narrative for the client.
That's great. Same question, Gordon, just for you. Obviously, we talked about so many great things. You're so smart. I literally sit here and I'm just going like, okay, I got to do so much. I've been saying that wrong for years. It's what I just thought to myself. So what do you think the one big thing that you would say, hey, if you're thinking about what we talked about, what's the big thing, big takeaway?
I did a podcast interview toward the end of 2020 with Don Graham, who was the owner of the Washington Post. I've known him since the 90s or so. And he sold to Jeff Bezos, sold the Washington Post, or his family did, after 8 decades. And by the way, if you want to listen to that podcast, it's a local marketing trends podcast. Here's a plug, guys. Just Google Borrell podcast. It's kind of cool. We have fun. We do it every other week. It's only 20 minutes. So in this particular interview, what impressed me most when I asked him, his response, when I asked him, what did he learn from selling to Jeff Bezos? He said Bezos came in, he didn't really have any answers. He was an avid reader. He didn't want to influence, politics or anything like that. But what he did was, and this, I think you were talking to him about complexities and all the types of things you have to watch and all the products maybe that you have to. Here's what gets people today. And this is why Bezos is the richest man in the world. All he does is reduce friction. It's that buy again button on Amazon. Okay. There it is. They know you bought it 6 months ago. It lasts 6 months and suddenly it pops up buy again. When you click buy again, it tells you when the damn thing is going to arrive. It doesn't say, are you sure? And enter your credit card number or anything. He did the same with the Washington Post. He just made it very, very simple. He didn't do it himself. It's just the mentality. So how does that translate to an agency? Keep it really simple, reduce the friction, make the story very clear and concise. Realize these advertisers don't have time to sit and listen to you talk about Google Analytics. They barely understand what SEO means or SEM and the differences, the nuances of them. Talk less. Give them a very compelling elevator speech, that 20-second long speech. Walk off the elevator first and have them chase you. What can you do? Say, oh, wait, here's my business card. I really want to do business with you, rather than just over-explain. It's a very confusing world, Tim, you said it. How can you make it really, really simple, really, really compelling, and reduce the friction? Make it really easy for them to say, yes, I trust you. I'll deal with you. All the other stuff will fall in line after that. You'll figure it out. You're smart agencies. You're in business. So I think that's we've found that more and more important. How do you keep it simple? How do you abbreviate it? How do you stop talking so much and just tell them, in such a compelling way that they're really fascinated by your knowledge, your abilities, and what you just said? I think that's really important going forward because the world's just getting more and more complex, and the premium is on people who can explain it succinctly.
Man, it's like say for the people in the back of the room who didn't hear it. Reduce friction. Holy shit. Thank you so much, Gordon. Thank you for your time. You're always amazing. Simplification, folks, tends to be a natural way to scale. And when you can actually simplify it, listen to these guys, hear what they've been talking about. There are so many trends to pay attention to, but it's about paying attention to the right ones and knowing exactly what you want to specialize in order to get to the right people, not everybody. And I love that. And so what I hope you heard at home is find the thing. This is my maybe call to action to everybody there. Find the one thing that you can implement right now. Don't just be theoretical, hypothetical. Don't just listen to these, giants of the data world and the people that have built all these businesses. Find the thing that they said that you can go implement right now with your team. That's the challenge.